It's Saturday. How are you today?
Very good.
Yes, I'm very excellent. Thank you. And today, I would like to take you to the scale your business awareness for global expansion. Don't forget, this is a digital to the new opportunity in the future to Thailand 4.0. And first, I would like to invite Mr. Warun Sharma, Head of Partnership in Residency. Please on the stage, give it up. And second, Mr. David Wang, CIO, Asia Silicon Valley Development Agency. Please welcome.
Woo!
Third, Mr. Nick, Estonia Government. Please welcome. And followed by Mr. Chris Chinason, co-founder, CEO, Mentor Mall. Please give it up. And the last, Mr. Stanley King, the moderator, chairman, Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce, Thailand. Hello.
Hello. Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. Even though it's almost 10:30 already, and we have very great honor that we have our many speakers from different places, and they have different experience that can come and share with us today. That how can we have the scale up our business, especially right now these days that Thailand we are promoting a lot of startup here, and then but the startup is good. But how can they really become in the ecosystem that we can see and build up our future? So we have all our expertise from different places today. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Sharma. Right? And can you share with us some of your expertise experience on this field, especially in Estonia? That how you your government and yourself and your organization supported on this kind of topic. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. Well, I think the best way to start with is I have a short video that we can put on now, which talks about the history of the Estonian e-governance platform and the e-residency, which is essentially an extension of the business-related services to the entire world now. So I request him to play the video now, please.
Completely from scratch. Free from any pre-existing economic system, tax laws, or formal government. A bankrupt country with its future and direction completely in the hands of its people. That's the story of Estonia. It was 1991, the Soviet Union had collapsed, and Estonia had just regained its independence. But with few resources and a small population, the country had to find a way forward. With the internet beginning to boom, leaders decided to invest in and build an e-society. The first project was Tiger Leap, which put computers and the internet in every school and got Estonians online fast. By the late 90s, all Estonian schools were online. In 2000, Estonia became the first country in the world to declare internet access as a basic human right. And today, Estonians are connected online through a mobile ID.
Using that ID card, we can do everything. We can vote online in elections. We can declare our taxes. We can register taxes. We can do e-school, e-police, e-cabinet, you name it. And everybody is very used to that.
All of this personal data is protected by technology called blockchain, a decentralized network with countless channels that make it exceedingly difficult to hack. And as a backup, Estonia will create the world's first data embassy in Luxembourg, a storage facility to house an entire backup of Estonia's data capable of rebooting the country in case of a cyber attack. The result is a country that runs like a tech startup. Estonia teaches first graders how to code. It has the world's fastest broadband and holds the records for most startups per person. In 2003, a group of Estonian friends developed the software for Skype, the video calling app. It was sold to Microsoft in 2011 for $8.5 billion, but instead of cashing out, the ex-Skypers reinvested in Estonia. They launched new startups and founded a venture capital fund with their wealth. Creating the future is Estonia's driving project, and increasingly its core business too. With the introduction of e-residents, Estonia is hoping to invite entrepreneurs to invest in the country.
So each person globally can apply and get this e-residency card the same way Estonians have been using that for 7 years. Using that card, e-resident establishes a bank account, and open different data and other solutions, and then you can remotely manage and administer the company fully online.
So far, just 18,000 people have signed up, but some believe that with 10 million e-residents paying $100 a month each, Estonia would not even need to tax its citizens. It's certainly an ambitious goal. Only a place that started over from scratch could imagine reinventing the whole idea of a country as a place where people could feel at home as much online as where they actually live. We'll see if the rest of the world takes a page from their book.
All right, so as you understood, the e-governance platform allows Estonian citizens to access a variety of services online. That could be to do with population registries, to do with taxation, to do with voting, actually. Estonia is the only country in the world where people even vote over the internet. And what Estonia decided to do about 3 years ago, the residency program will complete 3 years, December of this year, is to extend the possibility of doing business, as my colleague Kaspar was telling you over the video, to the entire world. And the e-taxation system, the business registry system, everything that kind of puts that together can now be used by anyone using an e-residency card. I'll just skip through the presentation. We already started a little late, so I'll just go through some key points very quickly. Yeah. I thought it was wireless completely. All right. So those are the business advantages. Why would someone use e-residency? Firstly, the digital ID itself is very, very trusted because it's based on the Estonian e-governance blockchain. So Estonia coincidentally invented two things which even Estonians didn't know about. One thing is the blockchain when they actually came up with the e-governance platform, and the other thing is the cloud. Because all the services on the blockchain, on the e-governance platform are actually hosted on the cloud. And that already started in the late 90s in Estonia. So the digital ID is of course very secure because of the way it's used. It's basically a public and a private key that match every time you need to use a certain service. It also makes it much simpler. And of course, whenever the IDs are issued, the procedure that's followed before issuing it is the same KYC procedure that's used by any Schengen government to issue a visa. So the security checks that are done through databases and accesses which normally aren't really available to, let's say, private sectors. Minimal bureaucracy. Since everything is online, it's much easier for people to track and understand what's happening. It also simplifies the process. Taxation in Estonia for residents or for e-residents takes less than 5 minutes. All you need to do is sign a document. Because when everything's already being done online, all you need to do is track that information on a regular basis, and then whenever you have to, finally file your taxes, it's very, very simple. And one of the biggest advantages of e-residency, since Estonia is an EU member state, is an access to a market of 500 million people. A lot of people talk about large economies and large countries nowadays, but everyone forgets that it's not just the population that you're looking at, it's also the market potential that you're looking at. And if you look at the European Union, it has one of the highest market penetrations in the world. So if you're doing business in the EU, out of the 500 million people, unless your product is very, very specific, you can have a market of, let's say, more or less at least 400 million. That's just a roundup of the e-governance services, and of course we've extended, the digital signature, DigiDoc, which is basically you can sign documents and encrypt digital containers of documents and send it to each other, so that you're always sure whatever information is being transmitted is legitimate and credible. That's how the e-residency card looks, and it works essentially with a card reader. You plug it into your computer, you download a software, and you're good to use it. You essentially have 2 pins. So the first pin lets you sign in, and the second pin is what is used for signing documents, for authorizing banking transactions. And in Estonia, the citizens and everyone else also uses the digital signatures, and they consider them to be more secure than physical signatures also. So, well, the mission, I guess you all understand. I'll just go over the vision really quickly. We decided in the beginning to have 10 million e-residents by 2025. And very recently, we also decided to change that a little bit and add 20,000 companies by 2020. Of course, that's just, let's say, our objective. But if we were to be able to host, I don't know, 20 billion companies at some point, that's possible because it's all digital. So that's the core product. It's just a trusted, location-independent EU company. You can establish it online, you can run it online, and you can also use private sector services that we're adding. Just so all of you understand, e-residency is, like I said, less than 3 years old. And for us, we are still running it in beta mode. That means we're still adding services, we're still testing what else is required. We're going to build community platforms. We recently actually added an online banking solutions provider as well, which allows people to have a digital IBAN anywhere in the world using their e-residency company. So you can digitally sign documents, you can verify the authenticity of everything, and that relies on the credibility of the Estonian e-governance platform. So it's backed by a government based in the European Union. You can encrypt and transmit documents to each other and attach it to emails. You can establish the company, administrate it from anywhere, and e-banking also. So in Estonia, also for citizens, whenever you log into a banking account, unlike having different access codes and other things in other countries, everyone just uses their digital identity. For us, when we live in Estonia, it's much easier for us to log in because we can actually use our mobile phones. So our IDs are actually integrated on our mobile phones, on the SIM cards. And in the future, we hope we can also extend such a similar service to e-residents. And you can, of course, access private sector service providers like PayPal, like Stripe. A lot of countries have restrictions on that, and it makes it much easier for them to access such services through their Estonian subsidiary or company itself. So e-residency for us is actually a business venture, or in other words, we call it the government startup, the world's first. And it allows us to extend the Estonian business environment and of course the technological environment to the rest of the world. And we hope it'll be our unique and positive contribution to the world. We actually just partnered up also with the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development on a project called E-Trade for All. And the first pilot project that we're doing is promoting entrepreneurship among women in India right now. Those are just the statistics. We have 23,000 e-residents as of date. I think maybe a few hundred more already from 138 countries. And some of the biggest e-residents, even though it has much more value for people outside the European Union, are from our neighbor Finland, because they just find it much easier to use the Estonian platform to run their business, even though they're a 20-minute flight away from us. And we've also seen a very big rise in applications from the UK because of the Brexit announcement that happened. The idea is actually what we're trying to focus on is not to move your business to Estonia, but offer them an opportunity to have access to the single market economy. And that's exactly the same thing for Asians. So even if you're based in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, India for that matter, you should always run your businesses here, but at the same time, Estonia gives you the opportunity to have an access to a whole other market, to a whole other world, especially if you're, let's say, 3 founders or 3 partners, or maybe 10, and you're all based in other parts of the world, or you're always traveling. So it makes it much easier for you. You don't have to always be based on time constraints or you know, other constraints in terms of resources, and you can always run your company from anywhere in the world. Those are the current service providers that we have who can help you, you know, set up a company. We're always trying to look at the private sector, whether in Estonia or outside. So we really want to partner up with the rest of the world and offer different services. I'm actually on a visit right now. I went to Singapore, went to Malaysia, and now I'm here. And next week I'll be in India, looking at various service providers who can provide localized services from a perspective of requirements that suit the legal framework of, let's say, those markets, even though people are using e-residency, because they still have requirements like repatriating their income and other things. to their own country, which differs from place to place. That's one slide I wanted all of you to see. That's about the different stakeholders in a company and what e-residency brings to them. So for owners and partners, of course, you can remotely monitor and control. You can also have this trust and faith. You don't need to know each other for 20 years. Even if you find each other interesting and you meet, at the, let's say GEC, 5 days later you can start an e-residency company and still have the faith that you're all running things properly because everything's online, right? Besides that, you can also trust the government. Actually, in Estonia, it's a rule that you can check all the information that you have on the e-governance platform, whether that's population or business related. And if anyone in the government checks that information, you can ask the question, why was this information checked? If they do not have a valid answer, you can actually sue them. And it has happened in Estonia in the past that there has been some unauthorized access. And so you are in charge. You don't have the big brother syndrome. You can securely manage your structure. You can do board decisions regardless of where you are, seamlessly and also securely. And of course, it's a financial inclusion in a lot of ways. Banking services, digital banking. You can kind of put products together. It just makes everything as a business much easier, I think. For the investors, your investors can be residents. And that makes it much easier for them to invest in your company, to track what's happening. You also have access to capital. Perhaps it's much easier for an investor to invest in a company that's based in Europe. We've had such examples earlier. They have borderless participation. They also reduce their risk in terms of hedging against currency fluctuations because of the euro. And of course, the corporate structure is very important for a number of them. For employees also, you can use it, freelancers, digital nomads. Those are some of the biggest cohorts that we've seen growing right now in Estonia. Also, services providers who are themselves startups, they've started to use features of e-residency. So let's say digital ID. A lot of people are actually using e-residency to allow their customers to log into their services. So we can also integrate that into, let's say, other solution providers using our own API. So let's say you're a banking services provider or you have an investment platform of some sort. You can make all your investors e-residents and then use that platform to log them in. The two things that you get by that is firstly security in terms of digital logins. And the best part is that the verification is still the same process. So there's still an EU government that did the verification on the people you're onboarding onto your systems. That's what lies ahead. Automated taxation. So we hope that you won't even have to spend less than 5 minutes to do your taxes. I think that's already too long for Estonians for some reason. So we've decided that taxation in the future is just going to be automated. And if you do have any questions, you can just mark them, and then the tax authorities would get back to you. A community platform. That's the biggest project that we're working on right now. We want e-residency to mean more. We already have 23,000, which we consider a minimal critical mass right now for us. And we are going to create a sort of a platform where people can engage with each other, find opportunity. Service providers can provide more information and more services. And that's just a small part of the kind of projects offline and online that we're planning on doing as a government. We recently introduced something called the Startup Visa, which is one-of-a-kind project that allows you to come to Estonia when your business has reached a certain size, and you can come there, work there between 1 and 1.5 years to really set things up and work in the Estonian business environment. One thing I must remind you is, even though you may have an Estonian company, doesn't mean you have to do business and trade in Estonia. All that means is that you're running a company through Estonia in the European Union economy or across the world. So I may be based in Estonia, I may only be doing business in Germany. But we're also doing things like the startup visa, which can bring people, make things easier for them. I'll only briefly mention this, the Estcoin discussion, which a lot of you may have heard about. That's our first, let's say, basic discussion right now, that we're talking about how it can help e-residents, citizens of Estonia and the residents. And it's not really a cryptocurrency, it's a crypto token that we're talking about right now. So let's see how that project goes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let's see how fast development of e-government in Estonia. I think later on we have more time to share more information there. Next, I would like to invite Mr. David Wen. And I think that David Wen, he's the president of the Silicon Valley Taiwan Angel Group. And most important, after our new president elected, and then we had to find out with the new Sanbao policy, we had to find out the Asian Silicon Valley Development Initiative. So I think David was the head of this one, and David is one of the architects of the Asian Silicon Valley Development Initiative, and currently serves as the Chief of Investment Officer. Can you share all the your experience and information with our friends here, please, David?
Okay, thank you, Stanley. I'll try to keep it at very high level and also brief about Taiwan's innovation and entrepreneurship program, and why Taiwan matter, and also a little bit about my background. I have been spent about 36 years in Silicon Valley and about 20 years in angel investment and venture capital. And I think for the digital economy, especially for the transformation, all the country are looking for what's next and why we need to invest for the future 5 to 10 years, especially for the digital economy transformation is so critical for any country. And especially for Taiwan, we have a 9 years program set up. So it's called Digit 2025, which we select five major areas for our country moving forward, especially for the future fast growing. And we know traditional manufacture is no longer become on to be for the fast growing in economy. Especially Taiwan used to do a lot of manufacture in ICT, information technology, especially PC, notebook, that area. But I think those job or those opportunity has been passed away. So we need to refocus on innovation. And the innovation will be coming from a lot of the software, and we identified areas called IoT, Internet of Things. So combine what our strengths used to be, the IC design or the semiconductor industry to the communication here. We still need to look for what's the fast growing area. So what we identify IoT could be the next big thing. And why Taiwan? A lot of people are asking, there are so many countries in so many areas can be also invest or go to. And I think that Taiwan does provide a very unfair advantage in terms of all these clusters, technology cluster, from IC design all the way to the manufacturer efficiency. For innovation, you need to have some quick prototyping. Even you have a great idea that you need to do a proof of concept, proof of service. And Taiwan does want to offer that kind of opportunity, from the small SMB to the enterprise. I think we have a greatest design and also the very agile, fast response time, to a lot of prototyping. So, and we have a very good trained talent, well-educated people, and who also work very diligently in some of the high-tech area. So government does want to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship, and we come up with a program called Asia Connect to Silicon Valley, Development Initiative, and that is to connect all the talent to also the technology clusters globally. We want to attract talent. We also want to attract technology to work with Taiwan, and not just that. We also want to go globally to connect, go to market. Like talent, Thailand is also a good place. How can we work together as an international partnership program to build up all together? So I think for the ecosystem, we try to connect globally, and we also want to do a lot of partnership. We also welcome a lot of young entrepreneurs to Taiwan as well. So we opened up the entrepreneur visa. We also have soft landing program. We offer good co-working space, or we also have an apartment. And Taiwan is one of the best city to live. I think we think 1 hour distance you can access to so many not just city, you can also to the co-working space class and also accelerator. And when you landed in Taiwan, we also want to give you a good mentorship, even customized to help you to grow your business there. And more attractive, I think you can access to a lot of these talent capabilities cluster, all the industry, software and also hardware area. So overall, I think Taiwan is the main destination for a lot of entrepreneurs. We try to attract globally. So I think the soft landing program, you can find out more detail through the online access. And I'll stop here, and then we can have more discussion later on.
Thank you very much, David. I think that everybody talking about all this, how to connect it to the Silicon Valley. But we can see that just now Sharma had to explain us about what happened in Estonia. Even though it's a small country, don't have much population, but it's a milestone. And next, our panelists that you can share with us more about Estonia on the government side to see that why you do this, what would be vision, and what you think that in the 5 or 10 years Estonia will be really become in your picture there.
Thank you. I'm Mick Weinig. I work for the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and the question of why is very good. One hint was given in the video. 6 years ago, when Skype was sold for billions of dollars, then the Estonian entrepreneurial system entered into this virtuous circle of new and new startups booming up. And our job as governments is to empower it and not to mess it up. So since then we have had more and more startup policies trying to develop the capital market, which was very small up to that point, but after that we have helping with the private sector with investments, and we're doing so even strongly now. And this is very important because Estonia is, well, actually it's quite small, it's 1.3 million, so capital is not so abundant, especially for companies who want to scale globally. And Estonian companies do want to scale globally, because if your home market is 1.3 million people, then it's not the market. So if you're serious about scaling up, then from day one, you have to look at neighboring markets, you have to look at UK and US. So I'm glad that we have already had some success, and some latest overviews of the Estonian ecosystem have shown that we are stronger than average in global connectedness, that we already have some good connections with the UK and US in particular in terms of investment, but more and more countries like Singapore and Japan also turn up as investors into Estonian companies. Just recently, Didi from China invested into the Estonian version of Uber, which is Taxify, to grow the company within Estonia even more. The question where we want to be in 5 to 10 years is to understand even better two things. First of all, the core values, or what is needed to be one of the best startup ecosystem, will probably change over time. So we would need to understand what makes a startup ecosystem the best in a few years' time, not right now, and we need to start moving towards that. Other than that, it's just trying to be the best partner possible for startups. We have this Startup Estonia initiative, which is like umbrella organization for startups in their collaboration with the government. And so far it has been going very well. The trust towards government from entrepreneurs is higher than EU average. So I think we're doing a decent job, but given that many of the investors still want Estonian companies to move their head quarters elsewhere. There's still a lot of work to be done in order to, make ourselves much bigger. And maybe one comment in addition to what Varun already said about e-residency is one doesn't typically think about it, but given that we are small in size, if we would increase tenfold, we get like 10 million e-residents. That is 10 more million people in the world for whom Estonia has a special place in their heart. And given how small we are, this will, that's maybe it's a kind of complex we're having, but this is also security, so what I wanted to say. If we get more people to be interested in us, the more secure place Estonia becomes to do a business. So everyone, do apply for e-residency. You're building the community. You're making us more visible, and we're there to help you grow your company.
Thank you very much.